you want to write a book and it will really help your career, it could really help you reach your career goals, that's when I think that it's worth doing, because it is a lot of work and it can be a lot of money if you're getting help from it. I think that's like the biggest thing that keeps people from accomplishing these big, great things is not because they're unable to do it, they're not smart enough or whatever. It's just putting in the effort and the time to get it done.
What up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. And this episode is a little different than norm, and I'll tell you why. Because people come up to me all the time and they're like, man, how'd you write your book? Or they'll say, I really want to write a book, or I'm going to write a book. And a lot of times I think all of us have the best intentions, yet there's a lot that goes into actually writing the book. And this episode features my good friend, Amelia Forczak, and she actually is the ghostwriter that wrote my book. A lot of you may or may not know that I had a ghostwriter, but honestly, without her, I don't believe I would have a book, or maybe I would just be finishing my book, 6 years later after writing 12 pages in only 5 years. But anyway, that's enough about that. But the reality is she and I are going to go through the process of what it was like to do that. And then also some of the benefits that come with writing the book, the credibility, having that as a marketing piece. Just a lot of benefits. So if you're one of those people that have been thinking, I really think I've got a book in me, or I should write a book, this is a great episode for you. And I want you to also think about, as you're listening to it, how can you use this same strategy in your business? Because it does. It translates. It's the same thing. Having an accountability partner, time blocking, knowing your why, your vision, like what you're going to write on. It's really, really cool. I enjoyed it a bunch, and I hope you really enjoy it. And Amelia's a great friend of mine, so if you are thinking about writing a book, I would highly recommend you contact her. Check out my book if you haven't yet. It's called The Sales Playbook. Okay, that's it. School for Realtors, guys. I dropped the ball. Did not realize the last couple months there was an issue with the website. So here I am promoting it, and I've had people going, and the site was down. And I would not even, I don't know, I guess it's been down for about a month and a half now. It's a bonehead move. That's all I can say. Not proud, but hey, none of us are perfect. So the reality is I want to make it right. I know some people have tried to purchase the product, so I'm going to offer the next 30 days. Anybody that purchases a product, you will get a $30 discount. So instead of $149, it's only $119. Okay, this is all the FSBO scripts you need, the expired scripts, marketing pieces. With the market shifting a bit, why not contact those sellers that have their hands up? All right, anyway, that said, the site is up now. I promise you, schoolforrealtors.com. Get yourself a copy or a kit. School for Realtors, the expired and FSBO kit. For the next 30 days, it's going to be $119. You guys rock. All right, folks. Today I am with Amelia Forczak, and Amelia is my good friend. Also, pretty much wrote my book. Well, we did it together, but she did most of the writing. She had reached out to me because she's writing her own book right now. So congratulations, yay!
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you mentioned you wanted to kind of talk to me about the process that we went through, and I thought it was super fun. And then I thought, what a cool interview, because so many of my listeners and the people I know and people I coach always ask me about writing a book and about the process. I thought this would be a cool episode that we can kind of share with these guys on, hey, you want to write a book? Then here's at least one way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So the book that I'm working on now, the working title is Becoming an Author, How to Write, Market, and Publish a Book That Will Kickstart Your Career. So it's all about writing a book that has to go with your business, and hopefully you're passionate about your business. So anybody who's thought, I kind of want to write a book, I wonder if that'd be good for my career, for my thought leadership, then the book that I'm writing is for them. So this interview, I think, will be perfect for that.
Yeah, and I think some people want to write a book for their business, which is ultimately, well, I wouldn't say that's exactly what I did. I think the book we wrote was based on my experience coming up through different businesses. However, it was always in the sales realm. And ultimately, my goal is to start doing more of training and teaching and such. But I also have people that say, well, you know what? I think my story would be great that I'd like to share with people. So there's people that write for different reasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You had mentioned you had some questions for me, so I'll kind of let you take over from here because I will never stop talking unless you make me. So tell me, where do you want to go with this conversation?
Yeah, I've got some questions for you. So I know you were talking about you kind of wanted to do more training and teaching. That goes along with my first question. So I wanted to know, what made you decide to write a book?
I think it was one of those things that I thought about for a long time. I felt like I was really good at a few things with regards to prospecting, which is ultimately what my book's about, right? Telephone sales, prospecting, marketing. Well, not so much marketing, although we're going to do some revisions to it that are going to incorporate some marketing. But, how to connect with people. I felt like I was better than average at that, or maybe a lot better than average. Just like I said, coming up through 30 years of sales experience, 30 years of being on the phone, working with others. I mean, people would always come to me for advice. So I figured, what better way to be able to give people that advice than to actually have it in a book that they can just pick up. So I think that was the initial idea. But then, as you know, there was a lot more work and procrastination on my end, that went into it. And I just have to give you credit even before we go any further, because I don't know that I would have ever actually written a book unless I hired somebody like you and made that payment initially, right? And then I created that accountability for myself so that now every week I had to show up and we had to have those conversations.
I really enjoyed working with you, and I totally get the whole accountability thing. And now that I'm writing my own book, I am channeling my authors and all their experiences where I'm like, wow, no one's holding me accountable. So I'm trying to hold myself accountable, and it is harder that way. So I see how if you're working with someone on a schedule and you've got set meetings with them every week where it's checking in, that does definitely help a lot with the process.
I honestly feel like that was the most critical piece of the whole thing, where I had no choice. We had to call every week. I had to get you the material, and once you make that commitment and you have that accountability and you've made that payment, right? Because it's a good chunk of money, then that to me is that real accountability. So I would say for you and everybody listening, you may want to find some type of an accountability partner. Maybe you personally don't need it because maybe it's your one thing. You're a writer, you know what I mean? You're a journalist. Maybe someone like you wouldn't need that, but someone like me, where it wasn't my one thing, where sales and selling real estate and homes and coaching was my one thing. So this was more secondary. So I needed something that would make sure every week I would show up at that time and do what I needed to do.
The accountability partner thing is huge because most of the people who are writing books are entrepreneurs or executives. They have a lot going on in their life already. They've got families, stuff like that. So it's hard you can't really turn down paid work. So if you have a lot of work coming in, you've got a business to manage and you're writing a book on the side that's not paid necessarily, like no one's paying you to do it, it's easy to put it off. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, where it's like, oh, I'm busy with work. It's great. But yeah, this thing that I really want to do, I need to find more time for it. Yeah, I definitely empathize with authors on that one.
So what I said is incorrect. So you're actually dealing with the same struggle that probably I dealt with and most of the people listening deal with as well, because it's not your primary thing right now.
Yeah, and I know how to do it, but it's just finding the time for it. I think that's like the biggest thing that keeps people from accomplishing these big, great things is not because they're unable to do it, they're not smart enough or whatever. It's just putting in the effort and the time to get it done.
Yeah, no doubt.
So the book process, we went through all kinds of things. I remember talking with you about all different types of topics. What did you enjoy most about the writing process?
I enjoyed the weekly calls, frankly. I enjoyed you asking me all those questions. You were able to really dig deep on a lot of things that made me think. I love having to really think about things. And also, one of the other things that I didn't expect was to have to do so much research because, as you know, once we started the project, I ended up having to read like 6 or 7 other books on prospecting, on phone sales, and it was like, wow, I thought I knew so much. And then I realized that, wow, even with what I knew, I really still needed a lot more information to fill a book, at least on my topic, right? I mean, if somebody's writing a book about themselves, then I don't know that they're going to have to do that. But for the book I wrote, I needed to do all that additional research. And I actually had fun with that.
I know that part of the research you did was adding interviews to the book. We added a bunch of interviews from people in different industries. I'm assuming you spent quite a bit of time on that as well.
I did. I spent quite a bit of time on that. I talked to other people. And again, it comes back to the research part, right? So I think it falls right in with that part of it. So I found that interesting. And then the funny thing is like what we're doing right now, it led to me creating a podcast, which actually has gone a lot further at this point than my book has gone so far. Because we're getting over 10,000 downloads a month. We're almost at 200,000 downloads. I mean, so yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, I've gotten Grant Cardone on my show, Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, so the opportunities that have come from this podcast have been tremendous. But to be honest with you, I don't know that I would have had the podcast. The podcast actually resulted from the book, right? From starting to do those interviews. And then after I had the book and I'm like, okay, what do I do with this now? And I said, I think the best way to market my book or get my book out there was to start a podcast. But yet the book hardly ever really comes up in the podcast interviews. So it's interesting.
I'm sure that it added to your credibility, being an author and having a podcast.
It's a good point.
That's great, though, because you mentioned earlier that you have no problem talking, and a podcast is perfect for you because you have things to say, And so I think for a lot of people, getting their words on paper can be a bit of a struggle. Like that's not their usual medium for communication, whereas talking comes so naturally, especially if you do consulting or training or you're a professional speaker. So a podcast is a super smart way to do your marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love it. I have fun with it. I'm not doing as many episodes now. I was doing weekly. Now I'm bi-weekly because I'm running a couple Keller Williams offices. It's interesting because I went for almost 2 years weekly. And then I decided I was going to take this role. So I skipped a couple months, but then I felt like, I don't know if it was like I felt guilty or I just felt like something was missing. So I went back and I did it monthly for a while. Now I'm doing it bi-weekly, which is obviously every other week. But it's interesting because even when I stopped doing it, downloads kept coming. And I think seeing that was really what kind of inspired me to maybe go back, to say, okay, I didn't even put out an episode in this month, but we still got 7,000 downloads,
great.
From past episodes. And so it was just really cool to see that. And then you'd see people at events and they would say, oh my God, I love your podcast or I read your book, things like that. So I think those things keep you going too.
That's awesome. So you think the podcast has helped your business?
It absolutely has helped my business. I think it's helped me with, like you said earlier, maybe some more credibility and beyond some of the people that I've been able to get on the podcast now has really helped because when you have people like Gary Vee or Mel Robbins or Grant Cardone or Brian Tracy on your podcast, now you can go use this and then you're going to get other really great guests because you can say, oh, I had them on. And they're going to be like, oh, wow, if they had them on, then this guy's got to be the real deal. And it's just helped me. It's created a lot of opportunities for me. But again, it's interesting that it all kind of stemmed from the book. Because in the beginning, I didn't have all these guests to say, hey, look who's been on my podcast. So what I used was my book. And I used the events. And I used the training I did at Keller Williams and the audience and all that stuff. So again, it full circle came back to the book and created that credibility.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a great book.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's so ironic that right before we did this interview, somebody had said they read the book recently and they said it was a really great, easy read. And I said, well, I have to give Amelia credit for that. And I know when we first started talking, I told you for like 5 years, I would write, 3 or 4 paragraphs. And, I think I sent you about 10 or 12 pages, right, when we first started of stuff that I actually wrote. But it never really I kind of got stuck, so I'd write a couple paragraphs and I'd do some more the next day. And then maybe I'd get a couple pages and then I'd stop for 6 months. Then I'd go back to it. I'd do it and then I wouldn't do it again for 2 weeks. So partnering with you on writing the book is what created the accountability and ultimately made it happen.
I remember the sections that you wrote were really good, like really good.
It's funny you said that.
Yeah. And I'm being honest, I think a lot of times I work with people who struggle to get their thoughts on paper. And it's weird. Something happens where it's so clear in your head, but then when you try to get it on paper, it gets so jumbled and it's hard to follow it and figure out what's going on. I think that because you're in sales and you're a good communicator, that you hadn't really had that issue. You you were thinking it, and then it would go down on paper just that same way. And that's, I think, what you really try to do as a writer is make it sound natural when you're writing, like make it sound like you're talking to someone.
It's funny that you said that because Antoinette Perez, who's a great friend of mine, she's one of the top trainers at Keller Williams. When she read the book, she had said that you did a phenomenal job of making the book sound like me.
Oh, was
like,
you?
because she knows me well. Yeah, exactly. But that was her comment because you wrote it. I mean, I did edits. I orated it to you, right? Like I told you this is what's happening, but you took all that and then you put it into writing. And I guess, I don't know if this is a fact, but I hear that's how Tony Robbins writes his books as well. He doesn't actually sit down and write them. He just has a ghostwriter.
Right. I mean, that's how, I don't want to say most books, but most books by people who do something other than write professionally, that's how they do it. And it's funny because sometimes people, they want to do all the writing themselves. And then at the end, I'll be brought into the project to edit the book. Sometimes that ends up taking even more time than if I would have just done ghostwriting from the beginning. And I think a lot of times I'm able to capture the author's authentic voice more from writing it just from conversations with them than from trying to edit their writing. Because sometimes, like I was saying, the writing gets so jumbled that the voice is just so lost that's hard to even like pull it out of there. From talking with someone on the phone and then just having them tell me what it is and just sort of writing it from there, it seems to work a lot better.
I guess that would be a question I would ask you. So how is somebody able to do that? Like have a conversation with me and then write a book, and somebody else that knows me really well, it's like, oh my God, it sounds just like you from reading it. I mean, that's cool. That's a gift.
I always need to talk to the person on the phone to get a feel for their voice, but I think it really just comes down to having a knack for the flow of important points. So it's like, what are we talking about? What are the points that we need to have in here? And then how do we wrap it up? It sounds simple when I say that, but that's my one thing that I'm good at. I can figure out how to do that. And then when I'm reading someone's draft, I can tell when it doesn't do that and why. It really just comes down to clarity. You know, it's like when you're talking to someone in a conversation, it's not hard to figure out what people are talking about. And somehow that just gets lost on paper. It's kind of weird.
Masters, I hope you're enjoying the episode, and I'm going to get you right back to the show. Couple opportunities. First, here's your one place to master FSBOs and expireds. Guys, you're going to get the expired full kit, and I'm going to give you the scripts that you need to be successful with for sale by owners, whether they're Zillow leads, Make Me Move, makes no difference, or it's just a FSBO at the corner that you want to pop by and say hello to. Everything you need to be successful, my friends, with FSBOs and expireds. Your complete kit, only $149. Schoolforrealtors.com. That's it, schoolforrealtors.com. And second, guys, if you love podcasts, which obviously you do, you're listening to this, you're going to love Audible. Audible has maybe not every book you can think of, but has amazing library of the best books out there. You can get yourself a free Audible book, free, absolutely free, like FREE, from going to davidsfreebook.com. Just go to davidsfreebook.com. I'll even give you a recommendation. Right now, I went back to some old school. I'm listening to Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. It's been fantastic to kind of regroup with that book, re-energize, and get my thinking right. So anyway, couple opportunities, schoolforrealtors.com, Master FSBOs and Expireds, and davidsfreebook.com. Master Mindset. You rock. For people listening right now, what advice would you give to them? I mean, if somebody's listening to this all the time, people say, oh my God, I have this idea for a book. I've had the idea for 10 years or 20 years or whatever. How many people will I hate to say, go their whole life and, you know, on their deathbed, for lack of better words, say, oh my God, I wish I would have written that book. You know, what would you say to those people?
Well, I talk to a lot of aspiring authors, and I always want to be like practical with people. You know, it's like if you want to write a book and it will really help your career, it could really help you reach your career goals, that's when I think that it's worth doing, because it is a lot of work and it can be a lot of money if you're getting help from it. So is that time and effort and money, is it going to pay off? So it really depends on what your business goals are. So if you're trying to get more clients and boost your image as a thought leader and do more coaching or speaking or whatever it is, I think that having a book is a huge help. And it really works better if you kind of already have a little bit of momentum going, because when you put in all that work and you have this great book, you are primarily responsible for selling it as the author. And a lot of times people don't know that. So they'll have a really great idea for a book, but they won't have a network or what we call a platform. So they won't have any way to spread the news about their book. If you have a great idea for a book and you put all this effort into it and no one finds out about it, it's not good. So for people that don't have that marketing going yet, where it could really help them, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe we should think a little bit more about going back to basics for business and marketing. Like, how do we build up your social media, your LinkedIn, your email newsletter list, your podcast, Instagram, your website, whatever it is. Like, what are all these things that will help build your brand image and build your following so that when you have a book come out, it actually helps?
That makes a ton of sense. Absolutely. And I know that was something that we talked about a lot in the beginning as well. And, when I hired a publisher, that was really important to them as well. They wanted to make sure that I had that following. I would say that was probably the thing that surprised me the most. Once the book was out, I was just like, okay, it's out. Like, it's going to go sell it. And it didn't. There was a ton of additional work and marketing, and you got to do a book tour, and you got to, so it's a ton of work to get people to even buy the book just because you're going to write it, unless you get lucky and hit I shouldn't say lucky. If you have a huge following, like a Gary Vee or something, or you can buy yourself into like the New York Times bestselling list if you have a couple $100,000 to invest. But if you don't have that, you're going to be working your butt off.
It can definitely be a lot of work. So I think that it should be a long-term strategy, right? It's not something where you're doing it for a month after the book comes out and then it's going to keep selling. Because if you stop marketing it, it's going to stop. So it's something that you keep doing for, a few years to have it maintain momentum.
I think what you said earlier is the why is going to be really important. So like, why are you actually writing it? My why since writing the book has changed. When I first wrote the book, my goal was to go off, teach, train, travel, which I did. But then I ended up having, a young daughter, and then I have another daughter now. So to me, that's not where I want to be in my life right now. So I'm not doing as much of that. So the podcast makes a lot more sense than when I first wrote the book. So the why behind it has changed. But if somebody wants to become an expert in, say, real estate, then go write a book about real estate and whatever, maybe the evolving technology coming into real estate, whatever it is. Now you have that. That's your credibility. So when you're meeting with sellers, buyers, other real estate agents, you have this tool that now gives you credibility.
I remember your intro for your book being really good. And you had some pretty personal stories in the book, particularly at the beginning of it. I always think that personal stories resonate with readers because they help get to know the author. And of course, the more interesting the story, the harder it can be for authors to share. So I wanted to ask if you found it hard to open up and talk about your personal life or your past when you were writing the book. And then what, if any, feedback have you gotten from those aspects of the book?
I don't find it hard to talk about my personal experience because I was already, as you know, I was going to schools. I was talking to the kids at graduation. So I was already doing a lot of that on the platform. So, putting it in a book was maybe not as difficult for me as maybe some others. However, the thing that did create a challenge for me was that there was a personal story that we shared, and my mother was involved in the story, and she was very, very upset about it. I hadn't really factored that into the equation. I think I told you this. So what we ended up doing actually was, it was a few thousand that were, I think, actually printed. But then we went back and we kind of did a revision of that part and took her out of it. Other than that, I think the feedback's been fantastic. People share, oh my God, thanks for sharing that. Oh my God, I didn't realize you went through things like that. Like, wow, I would never have known. Because people have no idea, some of the stuff that we've gone through. Me or anybody else for that matter. We all have our stuff. It was cool because it helped a lot of people to be able to relate. Because people put you on a platform. They have no idea where you come from or any of that. So it makes you more relatable.
I totally agree with that. And showing vulnerability is an admirable trait for leaders. Like when you see someone who is successful, you do tend to think like, oh, the ride to the top must have been easy. Nobody sees all the work that goes into it. Yeah, but I thought you did a good job of having like the right amount of you in your book. Sometimes authors go to either end of it. It's like they don't want to talk very much about themselves at all, which is a problem because they're the expert. There's a reason why they're writing that book. And then other times people just want to talk about themselves and not talk about anybody else's ideas. And then that can be a little much too. So finding that balance, I think, is also very important when you're writing.
Yeah, I think you did a good job with that because I know the goal of the book was really to create a practical strategy application, right? It's 11 strategies, right? So, I mean, that was the goal, but also adding that other element of personalness. Here's who David is. Here's some of the things that David went through. And that's another piece of feedback that I've gotten from people beyond people saying, wow, that was such an easy read and it's such simple application. People appreciated the stories and there was some humor in it and some other stuff too that I think you did a really good job with.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the story where you were looking down at your cell phone so intently that you ran into a pole.
Oh, I know. That's great.
Bruised your head and dropped your cell phone down a drain or something like that, right?
Yeah, smashed a phone and lost out on a sale because of it. And it's just the whole thing.
I still think about that when I'm walking down the street texting. I'm like, I need to stop this.
Well, I almost got hit by a friggin' car not too long ago. So, not paying attention, walked almost right into the street, got tooted at and literally probably about 4 feet from getting hit by a car.
Yikes.
So, so it's scary. So we got to pay attention. It's all you guys listening. You should not be texting. Never mind texting and walking, but texting and driving. I see far too many people do that. That's just bad. That's bad. Dangerous. Anyway, we're getting off track a little bit right now. All right. So do you have any other final questions for me or?
I guess I wanted to ask about book sales in general. I mean, we touched on that a little bit, how authors are responsible for driving sales of their book. But you being a sales expert, I feel like you have such a leg up on that already. And I think the hardest part is putting in the work to have success with it. So you know how to do that for sales. Can you tell me a little bit about how you spread the word about your book and certain things that have worked really well for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I did a lot more in the beginning. I probably didn't do enough either. But I mean, obviously when it first came out, I have thousands of followers on different social media platforms, and I had a database of close to, 5,000 people. So, by sending all that out, it sold a bunch of books out of the gate. But ultimately, what I was doing in the beginning was I was just going and teaching events. Sometimes there were 50 people, sometimes there were 150 people. And, they would buy books, or I was doing events for these mortgage companies and they would buy 200 books as part of me coming in as a speaker. So that was really how I did it in the beginning. I mean, honestly, we didn't sell a ton of books. I would say we probably sold a couple thousand books, to be honest with you. But again, that was the effort I put into it, right? So that's another reason why I reached out to you, because I think it's time to start thinking about, since writing the book, I've learned a lot more, about not just the prospecting element, but also incorporating social media into what we're doing. And I've generated a ton of business now through a combination of the prospecting part and social media, targeted advertising, doing events, those types of things. So that's why I'm really excited to do like a 2.0.
Those things are all becoming a lot more relevant. I've got a lot more clients asking about that kind of stuff than I used to hear questions about. So
I'll tell you one thing, though, is I'm not going to do it until I'm ready to go all in. Because even last time, I mean, I wrote the book, we got it done, but I was still doing my real estate business 90% of the time, right? So, I mean, when the book was done, I was pumped. I did some stuff, but still, the book was probably 10 to 15% of my time was committed to promoting the book and doing things to promote the book. And the other 80 to 85% of my time was used selling real estate or coaching clients, you know what I mean? Or I was building a product for sale. So, I mean, there was a lot of other things going on. So I think if I did anything different, or when I do another version, I think that's going to be the biggest difference. Is I'm going to just make a commitment that once it's done, I'm going all in on it, all in on the book and all in on the podcast.
That makes a ton of sense. I do work with a lot of people who they've got so many things going on that it can be hard to get it all done. So that's one of the pieces of advice that I'm going to have in my book, is talking about like, when is the right time to publish this book? Like, what else do you have going on? Because sometimes I work with people who are switching jobs, moving across the country, like all these crazy things where I'm like, this is not going to work. I know you want it to work, but it seems like this is a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, timing it right. 10% of your time is more than a lot of people dedicate to the book. So
And 10% is really like nothing, right? I mean, that's with our primary business or whatever, you should be investing 80% of your time into that, and that's how you become successful. So 10% is like nothing. That's like not even a hobby. I mean, I work out more than that. I probably work out 30% of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, well, it was an awesome experience, and I appreciate it. And, like I said, I think it's time for us to start talking about 2.0 and what that looks like. And then, like you said, maybe not just doing it, but coming up with a strategy for, okay, this is when we're going to do it, when it makes sense.
I am excited for that.
All right. And I'm excited too for you.
Yeah.
I'm excited to in your book, and it's going to be Becoming an Author.
Becoming an Author, how to write, publish, and market a book that kickstarts your career.
Awesome. I love it. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So for everybody listening, final question on Path to Mastery. My friends, a unique episode for you right here. If you're thinking about writing a book, hey, you got the person right here. Well, first off, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
My website is Pithy Wordsmithery. And again, my name is Amelia Forczak, and I'm a ghostwriter, and I also help authors with marketing.
Awesome. So what's the one thing that people should be taking from this episode today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that having a book helps your career and it can help you get to your goals, and it's doable. Like, you can definitely do this.
No, you're saying doable, but you're doable with help?
Yeah. I think everyone needs help. I mean, I'm a writer. I'm a professional writer, and I'm getting help with my book. It's a team of people. So I've got a copy editor who I've worked with for years, and I love him. He's amazing. So I'm working with him. And you know what? My mom provides great advice too. I think my mom has great insight on writing. So I think you should leverage those people in your life that have good insight, and they're good at picking out what works and what doesn't work. So get feedback from your friends and family. A lot of the time that can help clean up your writing, so that when you get it to a point where you're paying someone to help you, it's in a lot better spot. Love it, my friend. Well, hey, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and let's talk offline and talk about like what's next. 2.0, Sales Playbook 2.0. Yay! Masters, if you know me, you know health and nutrition is number one, and that's why I'm an advisor for Advocare products. Listen, in my opinion, these are the best products on the planet, guys. You get what you're supposed to get, right? I use the products for health. I use the products for energy. I use the products for wellness. So we have all the different lines from Spark, starting your day with a great energy shot, all the way to pre-workout. It's whatever your goals are, right? It's whatever your goals are. You can check out the products at www.livelongersmarter.com. That's my website. Or reach out to me, and I'd love to have a 30-minute or, anywhere from 15 to 30-minute conversation with you, just talking about your health and nutrition goals and what I can do to help you achieve those goals. So again, products, energy line, or wellness line, whether it's joints, you're getting up there in the age, you just want to take care of yourself. I'll tell you, one of the greatest compliments I get is people, you say, wow, you look amazing. I cannot believe you are the age you are. Weight loss. I've helped lots of people, guys, lose weight, not just lose it, but keep it off with the products. And the cool thing is, I'd say 75% of the people who start with our products, they continue using our products even after they initially tried them, which has been amazing. And strength, if you're into bodybuilding, then hey, Rich Fronin, okay? I don't know if you know who Rich Fronin is. He's an advocate for Advocare as well. So amazing products. You can see us. We're featured on NASCAR, professional soccer, college basketball, college football, Men's Health magazine last month. These are the real deal, guys. LiveLongerSmarter.com is the website, or reach out to me if you, like I said, if you want to have a personal conversation with me, just send me an email. In the subject line, just put Advocare products, and I'd love, like I said, schedule a 15 to 30-minute call with you to talk about your health and nutrition goals. Guys, you rock. Live longer, smarter. And as Gary Keller eloquently said, if you don't take care of your body, where are you gonna live? You rock.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.